The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Well, Pilgrims, Pastor Craig, Horton Congregational Church, and of course you recognize that from probably the best known psalm in all of time, and that is the 23rd Psalm written by King David, who knew from his humble beginnings what it meant to be a shepherd and could talk to us in phenomenal imagery in that psalm about the love God the Father has for us and his desire that we would be brought back into the fold and that we would be protected from enemies and from the danger that surrounds us. So I'm out here in the back pasture where it's starting to turn nicely green. Thank you for a little bit of spring weather. There's still a little bit of water here along on the fence row underneath some pine trees here. So if my sheep were out here, they would have plenty to eat. They'd have nice water to drink at this point, and I would have led them into a path of righteousness that was sustainable, as in lying down in green pastures, and refreshing, as in leading them beside still waters. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a prelude into the children's sermon tomorrow at Horton Congregational Church. We sure hope you'll join us at any time, 10:30 on Sunday mornings, and I sure appreciate the following of folks here on the videos. If you can't join us, at least we're getting some basis here by having a communication through the video. If you get an opportunity to comment on the video, I'd love to hear what you think. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about this 23rd Psalm. During the adult sermon time, we're going to explore the entire Psalm and see what we can learn from it. But during the children's sermon time, I want to explain to them what those lines, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Why is it that a club, in the imagery of David's psalm, why would a rod, kind of like a club like this, why would that comfort the people of God? Well, the imagery for those sheep is that shepherd's job was to lead them from pasture to pasture to make sure they had plenty to eat and plenty to drink. And along the way, there were likely to be wild animals or thieves or robbers or bears, cougars, foxes, eagles of the air, hawks, anything that would damage or destroy those sheep. And he had, in those days, they didn't have guns, and then a shepherd would not often carry a bow. Oh, he might carry a sling. We know that story. Only a boy named David, only a little sling. But primarily thy rod and thy staff, and they had a club in order to protect those sheep. And that's what this is, a symbol in David's imagery of the protection that God has promised us when we are of his flock. And then, of course, the staff with the crook in its end. I have to thank my good buddy Kim, who let me borrow this staff of his, the shepherd's crook or shepherd's staff. And that crook on the end, of course, used to gently pull sheep back into the flock if they've gone astray. Sheep are awfully impulsive. They see a gap in a fence, or they see one of their members running off in a certain direction. They're very impulsive and often prone to follow them, even if it means following them over a cliff to certain death. And this shepherd's crook is a way of bringing them back into the fold, and the shepherd in his wisdom is able to guide them to those greener pastures and that stiller water than what they might find otherwise. So we have in this phenomenal, again, imagery of David as he wrote this psalm, God's protection in the form of the rod, his gentle correction and guidance in the form of the staff. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll give you just a little bit of an insight. We're going to talk about why is that the valley of the shadow of death? Why isn't it even though I face death itself? Well, because we know that David looked forward to the day when a Savior would come who would conquer sin and death. And of course, we celebrated that a couple of weeks ago on Easter morning. So it's that valley of the shadow of death that they fear no evil from, for we know that God is with us forever. He's promised us that protection from the rod, using his rod in that imagery, and the staff is gentle guidance. May he guide you this week in all that you do. Praise his holy name. God bless.